my God. Yeah, I wish I had. I think I deleted most of those videos where I was like, just out the outtakes. Like, no, just, you get mad at yourself. I'm sure you've all had this experience, but it is really funny, though. It's funny to see yourself get so mad about something so insignificant,
I know.
something so like small. You're like, this is not a big deal. This is just this silly video series that you decided to do, or whatever it is.
I get you.
It's a small thing.
You have no idea. Our guest today is avant renegade saxophonist Caroline Davis. Caroline is one of those people who, if you told me there were actually 3 of her, I'd believe it. She's always putting out new work, new compositions and collaborations, and booking multiple groups all over the place. Even when we were all taking a forced break from life and making sourdough bread, Caroline used the lockdown to put out her Oscillation series, 52 pieces in 52 weeks, where she performed various saxophone oscillating patterns based on scientific research that shows the potential to interrupt repetitive neuronal firings in the brain, causing positive changes on the central nervous system. What we love about speaking and playing with Caroline is that she has the sincerity and courage to fully put herself out there emotionally and intellectually, taking risks like merging scientific breakthroughs in music, but she's so down to earth and real that we actually lost track of time and forgot we were taping a show. We just think Caroline's the coolest. We had a great time with her, and we really hope you enjoy her openness and her creativity.
Are we rolling?
Yeah, this is it. We're pretty much done in a minute.
Podcast over.
Caroline Davis, thanks for being here. We're excited to have you.
Really excited.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I saw something about you worked with Terry Riley. Did you get to meet that guy?
I did. Yeah, we did this birthday celebration for him a couple years ago at Pioneer. Wow. Yeah, and it was really a pleasure to be involved in that saxophone quartet. It was Travis LaPlante putting the quartet together, and he had said that no one really played that piece very often, and so he was excited.
Terry's piece.
Yeah, Terry said this piece wasn't performed very, very much, so that's why we sort of chose it to be showcased on this concert, and so we were super excited to be able to
I don't like get, stargazer kind of
starstruck
vibe. Yeah, I don't get starstruck very much, but and he's not even famous just to us, But like, I don't know, that one kind of hit me. I was like,
He's legendary.
It's kind of like
Yeah.
Yoda or something. What was he like? Was he
He
like,
is.
was it like Obi-Wan Kenobi or something?
I mean, he's kind of a regular guy, you know?
You have a piece in a book that just came out. I was going to ask about that. New Standards, 101 Lead Sheets by Women Composers. What is this book for anybody that's not hip to it?
This is Terry Lynn Carrington's book, and she had been contacting 101 composers to put their pieces in this book in order for...
Sounds like a nightmare to me to contact.
Well, there's a whole team, so
Right,
it wasn't just her in charge of everything, but she had a really wonderful team who was in charge of, you know, getting all of our lead sheets, and then they've had to standardize everything. So we had to go through this process of being like, what is this chord? I remember, in my piece, there's like a, you know, E. I wanted this chord, which is the root and the fourth and the fifth, you know, and I notated it my own way, and then they were kind of like, we should notate it this way instead, and so it was kind of going back and forth in this way.
That's interesting.
Which is cool. I love the book, though. It was cool because it showcases just such a whole range of compositions. And the other thing about it is that we weren't able to choose the composition, or I wasn't able to choose the composition that went in the book. And that was interesting, too, because my song that's in the book is quite old now. It's like almost 15 years old. And so it's kind of not where I'm at musically
Well, it's
anymore.
a standard.
But
that's how it goes.
But I'm so excited to actually have this be a part of history, you know, in this way.
Let's clear up though what a real book. It's like a real book. It's like a fake book. And when we buy these books or get them online or whatever, these are kind of charts of people that so you can play them, right? Isn't that the idea? It's kind of like just in case there's one guy in Japan who's retired who likes to watch this show. So I just want him to know what we're talking about. It's like a collection of books. So like if somebody's learning jazz, if they want to play a jazz gig.
Let's do this. Okay.
Yeah. yeah, grab it.
Okay, I'm a big
Grab
fan.
it.
Here's the book. And hold it up.
It's so great.
And then just
Here it is.
Wow.
Here's some other examples.
It's good advertising.
I know. It's really
Some
great.
here's like, where's the camera? Here's the regular real
We're
book,
here.
but PAL real. These are the examples for all your friends that want to know the lead sheets, so you can play.
Yeah.
Yeah,
These are all like the like most famous standards. The most famous because they ended up being in this book.
And there's friends of ours who are like, you know, in the scene right now playing, but there's also Alice Coltrane, Jerry Allen's got a song in there. There's
I think Carla Bley, maybe?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Carla
for
Bley's
sure.
in there.
Caroline's in
I
there.
think it's exactly.
It's really an honor. I was really happy to be involved, and I had met Terry Lynn through this sort of world of social justice for gender equity. As I'm teaching, I teach one course at the New School with my colleague and friend Sarah
ask about
Elizabeth
that.
Charles,
Right.
and we teach a course together called Jazz and Gender. And
Right.
so we had Terry Lynn as a guest a few times. We've had Brandy Younger, we've had Carmen Stoff, we've had Terry Lynn Carrington, we've had Wendy Eisenberg, Chloe Rowlands, people whose genders have been a part of their identity in the music and who can share with us their experiences and how they've gone into shaping their identities as musicians.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's been really a great time for me and connected to things I didn't study
It sounds
in school.
positive.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. It can be both difficult. It can be both traumatic and positive
Sure.
in that we're, you know, describing some of the experiences that women who came before us experienced, you know, things that aren't fun to talk about.
Yeah.
But there has to be some sort of, you know, acknowledgement of that hardship so that we can understand where we're going. But yeah, there is a lot of positivity and there is a lot of listening. We listen a lot. And people are like, oh my God, I've never...
To music.
We just had a student transcribe a Jerry Allen solo from the Paul Motion Charlie Hayden record, the Etudes record. There's this blues on there. And the student transcribed like 1.5 choruses from this blues, and he played on tenor piano solo, and everybody's like, what is this? Like, I've never heard this. Like, who is this? Some people like, I've never heard of Jerry Allen. Like, you've never heard of Jerry Allen. All right, let's go.
A lot of good stuff kind of got...
It's really, I know, right? I mean, it's really
a lot of good stuff got left out of the canon, strangely, and it's like, I don't know, you don't have to sell it. It's just like great tunes.
Oh,
you know
it's
what
so
I mean?
good. Especially her. She's just
Yeah.
you know, what an artist.
Can we talk about the saxophone for a second? Our instrument? We don't have many saxophone players. Yeah, how do you see this instrument? I'm always kind of trying to ask somebody, like, it's just an interesting kind of on the fence of many different things, right? It's brass, it's a woodwind, it's kind of steampunk, it's sort of modern, but then it's like almost like an old flute. Like, what do you think about the saxophone? Or do you just not think about it much? That's fine too.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to not really think about it that much, but I do not listen to a lot of saxophone players. Or I just, I don't, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's really funny to say this because I play this instrument, but it's not my favorite instrument, or it's not my favorite instrument to explore. So I try, or in my practice sessions, I'm trying sort of to sound like something else, to look into ways of sounding texturally like a different instrument, or how to incorporate a different space, or how to play phrases that aren't saxophonistic, or, you know, in that way. Because I think that the sort of typical way of playing the saxophone is disappearing, which I'm super happy about. There's more and more people who are coming along and listening to those people who didn't do it the same way as everyone. So that's exciting for me to see. But yeah, it is a very strange instrument, and I think it's not the easiest instrument to play and get work on. You know, you'll get more work if you're like a drummer or a bass player.
Right, yeah.
You kind of have to book your own stuff if you're a saxophonist a lot of the time.
Right. And so, yeah,
which I'm not good at, so that's... I always tell these kids, you know, we do these demos for kids at schools to say, like, well, we have this instrument, there's this one you can learn this one. Yeah. And I'm always like, well, mine is the most diverse, it's the most versatile, it's in this kind of music and this kind, you can make these kind of sounds and these kind. And then I always tell them also, I think it sounds the most like the human voice of the like Western instruments, you know, maybe a duduk or a ney or something like that. But I just think it's really interesting that, you know, there's so many different kinds of saxophone sounds, and yet people tend to gravitate to like one or two or three areas. I don't know, I was listening to your album and it didn't seem like that at all. It seemed like you were getting a lot of different sounds.
Oh yeah, I mean, thank you. That's very flattering.
Thank you.
Yeah. For listening. And yeah, I mean, I think it's only time for people to sort of explore their own means of getting a sound out of their instrument that's, you know, theirs. You know, I think that's really important. Unless, I mean, there's also the argument of playing music playing music to sound like something that's already out there, which a lot of people do, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's equally as respectful, even though I don't do that. So, you know, someone might be really interested in sounding like a version of John Coltrane from this time period only, you know, which I've heard,
a lot of people.
Right, yeah, I've heard that. And I think it's pretty astounding the work it takes to do that. I mean, that's like equally as the amount of work and energy that it takes to do that is like equally as astounding as the work that we've all done, trying to be unique improvisers. And I'm not saying that's not improvising, but it's just a certain like stylistic constraint. But I do think there is some kind of stigma against bringing some of those further reaching improvised context into the institution. And artists like Anthony Braxton or Wadada Leo Smith or Roscoe Mitchell, or Nicole Mitchell, people who've been a part of this like canon of expression for the AACM, for example, or even not associated with the AACM. We all need to, like, as educators, be so more forthright for expressing that it's okay for people to do those kinds of things. Yeah. And that it's not jazz. I hope that makes sense. It's still like Black American music and jazz because you've been influenced by this whole canon of the music, and even though it doesn't sound like what we think it's supposed to sound like or what it has sounded like, it's still considered part of the canon.
Can we talk about your album, the album that came out recently?
Oh yeah, the Portals album that
Yeah.
was a year ago. Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to make sure it's okay to talk about it. 'Cause
Sure,
it's,
yeah.
it's pretty deep. I gotta be honest, I read about it first.
Oh, cool.
And then when I listened to it, I was telling Kat, I was like, oh, that's not exactly what I was expecting. You know, I like the first track is kind of like, it's kind of throwing down, you know? And I was like, okay, because I'm going to read what it said on the liner notes. It said, her new recording, Portals Volume 1, Mourning, is a culmination of a year of suffering, accepting and channeling her mourning through a unique process to find equilibrium through composition and reflection. So I was like telling Kat, I was like, okay, I'm going to wait until like I'm in a good space and like, really take a solemn approach to this. And then, I don't know, there was a lot of joyful, there was a lot of like playing, like throwing down. There was like different kind of compositional elements. It just wasn't what I would have thought of about an album of mourning and suffering and that kind of stuff. Can you talk about like what accessing music in this way? Like, it seems to be a lot different than just like, I want to make an album and I got some triad pairs that I want to show off or something like that. So I don't know. Do you mind talking about it?
Yeah, I mean, I approached that record very texturally, and it was sort of my way of sharing all of the textures that I was experiencing when I was dealing with that grief. And so, yeah, I mean, a lot of the first stuff was kind of like harsh. It's really harsh when a close person, or when your parent died. I'm sure you know that, but when, yeah, it's so harsh, and it feels like anger and
yeah, that was in there.
Steel, and yeah, the harshness of it was really first experienced, because just your personal relationships with your parents and how that plays into the roles that you play out together. And then I think there's some tenderness that's in there, but yeah, there's a lot of like remembering, recontemplating memories, reevaluating memories of joy that we had, and forgetting some of the anger that came along with that particular relationship.
But it was in there too, maybe, right?
Yeah, for sure. The joy is for sure in there, and contemplation is in there. But yeah, I wanted to sort of give the whole textural gamut of it. But for me, grief was really, really textural. So I really felt like prickly pain, and then I felt like my muscles really tensing up, and that was really steel, like harsh to me, hard brick. And then there was like, all I wanted to do is sort of be engulfed inside of a soft blanket, or just cottony, soft textures. And then sometimes I just wanted to be inside of water, And so to me, that process was really related to where I was like, engulfing myself.
You're coming from it from the perspective of the composer, and then from the perspective of the performer, and then also the listener. Which I thought was really cool. And I don't know if any of your music came out of the oscillations that you were working on, but I kind of drew a parallel there, because that was really fascinating to me, because you're changing little parts of the neurons in your brain to feel a different way. And I don't know, does that connect with your composition process for the record?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been trying to be interested in connecting those realms of science and music in a certain way, I guess. Like compositionally, a lot of my influence comes from science and sort of thinking about the brain and the body and the nervous system, the like various nervous systems, sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system. And so when I started writing the music for the Portals album, I wasn't so knowledgeable. I was starting to get into the stuff that I was exploring with oscillations, work with rhythm and the nervous system, but I wasn't really, it was more just textural. How can I get this across in a textural way? But then later on, I started getting into it, and some of the improvising on that record could be influenced by, because I started working on the oscillations right when we were starting to record.
Yeah, I thought there might have been a bit of a time overlap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely like as an improviser, as a performer.
Somatic, just feeling, and then there's the total flip where it's like biology in the brain, and it's just so cool.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I'm sure you've experienced this too, like being in the studio and you're like, okay, I've got to play. I got to let it all go and just play and be here right now with my friends and do this. And like, okay. But then you have to be like, I'm paying for this and I have this time. Like, I got to make sure that I get everything. Okay, this is what I need to do. I need to get this person to make sure they're comfortable improvising on this one solo, and I'm not sure if they're happy, so we have to do this again, or like, okay, and now everyone's here together, so I want to do these pieces that they weren't expecting. And I did that a little bit, like some of the little shorter interludes that I just told them what to do in the studio. And that was sort of like, I'm a producer and I'm doing this and I've got to arrange this now. I have to tell them what to do and maybe they won't like it. And then you're having to listen and be like, is this good? You know, can we move
then
on?
you have to listen and say, does this relate back to like the entire inception of this project?
I know.
It's like
That's
impossible.
Really insane.
But you did it.
And there's just not enough time or money.
I loved it. It really, I felt it. It said something about, intellectual, emotional, and somatic. And I was like, oh, that's it. That's what I felt. Like, it was kind of, because I think, emotions, they really like live in your body. You know what I mean? And so like, we call them feelings, but a lot of people I think don't really feel them. They say, I am sad. Or maybe they say I feel sad or something like that, which even then sad, like how one-dimensional is something like that. Keith Jarrett said, emotions are usually two or more things. Like sentimentality is like being sad about something that was happy. So doesn't that really kind of describe emotion better? But when I was listening to it, it felt it. It was like sometimes it kind of cut, almost like I was being kind of cut open, and then sometimes there was a hug and embrace or water. I felt that one too.
And you feel it somewhere, like you're being cut here.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's where you felt it.
Right.
In your heart.
And I think I had some stuff sort of trapped up.
Yeah.
And like it kind of maybe.
See, this is the listener perspective.
Exactly.
Like you as a composer, and then later as the performer.
Yeah.
And now Ocean's feeling it right here.
Right.
This is the crazy thing about music.
What do you do after that? I mean, I'm sure you've been working on a project since then, probably.
Yeah, I have a couple things in the works. This one album that I recorded a year and a bit ago with Chris Tordini and Taishan Sori and Val Janti, and part of the album features Qasim Naqvi, who's playing modular synth, and
Sweet.
Yeah, and so that record is coming out next year.
Well, he's the wrong guy for the project.
Are you gotta put the link to his episode
my
on the bottom.
He's always the right guy. He's just always the right guy in so many ways.
It's my best
one of
guy.
my favorite people. And I met him through sort of the New Amsterdam family. But yeah, so that album's coming out next year sometime, and then
it like, because I'm curious and I don't know anything about it, so because sometimes you do something this deep and this, I don't want to use words like profound, but I mean, come on, you know what I mean? There's music that it's like, this is groove, and the groove puts you into flow or trance, and that's all there is to it. The bass line, and like that's all it needs to be. There's a melody, and it's not connected to anything else, and that's fine. But that's not what the Portals album that we're talking about is. It's something else. So like, I don't know, do you have a hankering to like just do something whimsical or like something completely different, or do you want to go further into this, maybe not grief, but like a different kind of realm and experience that?
So this record I was just talking about is it's sort of an extension of the Alula project that I had with Matt Mitchell and Greg Saunier. So that's more of, that doesn't really have so much of a concept, rather it's it includes electronics, so it's more of sort of an electric project. But this album is like a social justice album, so it features like 6 social justice warriors who I thought were fighting for their lives in various ways. So anyway, that's that. And then I am going into this realm of Portals again, which is we're recording.
Yeah, because it said volume 1.
Yeah,
so.
this is volume 1. I'm recording volume 2 in the end of December again. A different band, same band, different sort of identity. But this portal will be approaching. Portals is my idea of connecting with someone who died, who's my ancestor. So the next one is my grandmother, who was a poet, and so I'm gonna be featuring her poetry alongside my music, with a couple vocalists and a poet who's going to be more of a spoken word person, and also a rapper on a couple tracks. So there's all of that plus my band, and it's a little more like, it's a little less arranged than the other album. So it's a little more, there's.
But it sounds like you're staying kind of heavy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I saw a thing with Spielberg the other day. He's got a movie coming out.
Oh yeah,
and he said,
I saw that
"Look,
too.
I did Schindler's List, I had to do the opposite. I could not do something intense. So he made Jurassic Park. You know what I mean? It's like it had to be fun.
That's
or
still
else I was going to, he's like, I was going to die. I could not continue in that path any longer. I couldn't like do Schindler's List and then Munich and then like, you know, I had to do something in between.
Yeah, I mean, this is a little more, I mean, that was really grief to the max, I think.
Right.
And because it was so, my dad's death was so unexpected and just, yeah.
And it happened before COVID too.
Yeah.
So, right.
And this, my grandmother's been passed away for a while, and she, you know, she was older when she died.
Right.
And she had a good life, and her poetry is kind of whimsical in this way. It is like, there's less heaviness, I would say. And there's more lyricism, and there's lyrics, there's words. So yeah, it's a little more.
Be pretty different.
Yeah, it's gonna be different.
Thanks for talking to us. You're great at this. We should just have you here every time and listen to the show.
Maybe.
It's so easy. I don't mind our introverted friends either. That's totally fine. The awkward ones, but like this is just easy. You know, we always ask this thing. You know, what is something that you wish you knew when you were younger? Could have been a couple years ago, or like when you were 5, or when you were 22, or I don't know.
I think the importance of loving yourself, you know, no matter what, from the beginning of your young age. I think it's never too early to love yourself, you know. I think my parents did what they could when they were raising me. But I think they didn't instill that sort of like love yourself mentality that is so present in this culture, in this generation of kids.
Yeah.
I think
maybe
it's
a
really
little
strong.
too present
maybe
sometimes.
a little too much. Yeah. But there
Some
is
of my
that.
Students.
Yes, I know. Like some of my students here at the new school, I'm like, man, y'all really love yourselves.
Yeah, they
it's
really do.
amazing. Just so much pride and like, this is what I need. And I'm like, wow, that's gorgeous.
They don't put up with shit either, man. That's the thing.
I know what I
love
need.
that generation. I want to go ahead and turn society over to them right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? They really have I think they have the right idea. You know?
Wow.
All right. Well, thanks for being vulnerable with us.
Yeah.
And, we'll see you next week when you come back.